this is Dr. Huang. I would like to spend a few minutes to talk about the end of term project. So now it has been assigned. I believe it is very important that you can stay on top of the schedule, come up with a hypothesis in the coming week, so that you have enough time to complete the project. So now, what can you do with what we have learned? I think this is the nice part of the project is you really can apply what you have learned in some real life setting. So let's take a look at some topics that we have learned or we will study, so that you know what you can do. And then I'm gonna give you a couple examples that our former students what they did. So share some ideas with you. Hopefully it will be helpful. I'm gonna look at some topics that we have studied. In chapter 8, we learn test of one proportion, test of one mean, test of one standard deviation. So in that case, you just have one sample and you test just one population parameter. In chapter 9, we talked about comparing two proportions, two means. Depending on how the means are collected, we have independent and dependent. For the dependent means, that's so-called a matched pair. And we skip a section, which is the comparing two population standard deviation. But one of my former students, she did a very nice project in this section, so I'm gonna share that with you momentarily. In chapter 10, we learn how to test correlation. So this is good when you have two quantitative variables and you want to check whether they are correlated to each other or not. Now, in chapter 11, the first section is to test equality of three or more proportions. And we have students, former students, did some projects in this section. And the section 11.3 is to test independence of two categorical variables. So now, just want you to be aware that this is two categorical variables. You use the test of independence learned in this section. But previously, when you have two quantitative variables, when you test whether they are related to each other, you use the test of correlation. And in chapter 12, you will learn ANOVA, and the first section is to test three or more independent means. So the idea will be similar to 9.3, section 9.3 test means, but this is more populations, like three or more independent means. And the last section in chapter 12, 12.3, is to test whether two variables are do they have interaction effect, or whether they have interaction effects or not. If they don't, is the effects coming from the row or column variable. So this is chapter 12, the last section. And then once you are done with the hypothesis, which is the first step, the very important step, you're going to collect the data and then describe the data set using descriptive statistics, and then complete your hypothesis testing using the inferential statistics. But those will come pretty, I would say, more straightforward once you have your hypothesis is done. Now, I'm gonna talk about some specific examples about hypothesis. So I'll give you a few examples that I really like from the former students. So the first one was one of the former students. She worked at Menards, and she sells different products. And then she found that one specific brand of screws, there were more customers returning that kind of brand. So she thought maybe that kind of brand, the screws, is not that the quality is quite low. In other words, the diameter of the screws, they are not very consistent. Put it in another more statistical language, that means the standard deviation of the screws is more than the other brand. So therefore, she came up with this hypothesis. The standard deviation of this particular brand is bigger than the standard deviation of some other brand. And with that, she began to collect data, like measure the standard deviation, measure the diameters of this brand, and then found the standard deviation of this brand, compare the standard deviations of this brand with another brand. So this is one really good one, and it's related to what she was working, and it has some practical significance because she then can advise other customers like what brand to buy. So this is one example. I remember it very clear because it was a very nice project. The other one is also from former students. He worked in enterprise car rental, and so he likes car, and then he sometimes talk to customers about where they buy cars, and believe that people buy cars equally likely from the dealership in Fremont, including Gene Steffi, Dyer's Ford, and some other dealership. So he hypothesized that the proportion of customers going to these three broad categories of car dealerships are equal. He was using the chapter 11 section 2 to test equality of three or more proportion. So that's what he did. And one more, let me give you one more example. That's from a group of nursing students, and because when this project was assigned, they were going through the topic related to the cardiac system. So she was also involved in sports. So therefore, she hypothesized that athletes have lower heart rates than non-athletes. So she was comparing two means. So from two populations, one is from athletes, the other one is from non-athletes. So there are many things that you can do in this end of term project. I don't want you to limit to some certain topic. Just be creative. I'll be here to support you. But the thing is, you gotta come up with your idea on what hypothesis that you want to test. So you have some belief from your real life experience, and then begin from there. I look forward to hearing from you your ideas, but you have a deadline to come up with this hypothesis. So when you have a idea, come talk to me, shoot me an email if we cannot meet. I try to provide prompt feedback so that you can submit the hypothesis on time. So the purpose of creating this video is to give everyone a uniform message. Even if you are not able to come to talk to me face to face, you still have something to this video, the information I provide you in this video to help you get started. So again, don't hesitate to talk to me. Looking forward to hearing from you.